Good evening, everyone, and welcome to digiMAX Sports Network. This is Scott Kerker, along with new Metamore head football coach Nick Delinski. Coach, it's probably been a very anticipated summer, and or maybe anxious, I guess is a better word for it, for you this past summer, leading into this season.
I just think we need to play Friday, to be honest with you. It has been. It's been a very long and quick journey from April to now. So, it's one of those things we're ready to get going. Kids are ready. But there was a lot of work we had to get done in the summer. I think our kids handled that part very well. Coaches handled it very well. Just now they've been practicing a lot. It's about time we need to start playing a game.
Coach, you went the whole summer, and a few new things this past summer. You've always had your 7-on-7s, but this year you got to participate in a few 11-on-11s, which was basically a full pad practice.
Yeah, I mean, they're helmets and shoulder pads, stud tempo only, which means you can declare no declared winners and that sort of stuff. But yeah, we went against United Township early in July. We had a good work with Eureka and Coach Bachman, who's great. And then got a call from Coach Joe Ryan up in Sycamore and asked, hey, you want to come up with us in Dixon on a Wednesday right before the end of the summer? And you can't pass up that opportunity. Sycamore, one of the elite programs in the state, and just to get that opportunity was, it was really good for our program.
So do you like the 11-on-11s during the summer? Is that better than the 7-on-7s?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely better. I mean, it's real football. I mean, and within there we break things down like, we do a run set, an inside run set. We do a pass set, and then we do kind of a team drive kind of thing. Again, all controlled, and you go with coaches that you know really well, so it kind of keeps the chippiness and all the other stuff out of the way, and you trust each other. You know when the whistle's going to be blown, and you know that things aren't going to get out of hand. And when coaches can control their kids and you can control your kids, usually a good outcome comes out from those, because it is practice, and we're there to get better. Every other program gets to do it. Basketball for years has been 5-on-5. Baseball gets to play summer baseball. Soccer gets to play soccer, and it's kind of a nice little ad that football gets to do this now. And this is our second year with it, so we just keep learning every time. And we get 4 of them this summer. We use 3 this year. We'll probably look to use all 4 next year.
It's probably a lot better to be able to go out and play against somebody you don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's a good and a bad with it, because some of it you're just working on yourself, right? You're trying to you put together a script of, I want to see these plays run. Defensively, it's like, we want to play this front. Well, you don't know what the other team's really going to show up in. So that kind of makes it a little bit challenging at times. I mean, you could have more communication if you want, but like when we went up to Sycamore, we know that there could be some under center, double dive, wing tee stuff. But the most important thing is we know they're really physical, and allowed us to kind of match up and see where we were at. And we have some sophomores that kind of needed to see what it's like to get off the ball at the varsity level. And there's really nobody probably better in the state, for the most part. But up there, the Sycamores and the Rochelles and those guys that get in that wing tee, those guys get off the ball. And if you aren't matching it, your 3 technique's going to quickly become a free safety before he knows it. So those are good things for us, and I do think it allows you to measure where you're at with some of your kids differently than when you are just going against each other during practice.
It's probably a lot better because in an 11-on-11, you get all of your players involved instead of just the skill players that were involved in the 7-on-7.
You get those linemen that kind of allow them to understand what they're doing up front, 1, pass pro, and 2, with our schemes. And, and the one nice thing is, and it forces, Coach Otto and myself and the other offensive coaches, is we got to prepare for everything. Make sure our rules are sound, make sure we understand what we're doing against an odd front, be it an even front. Talked about, we get into the season now. Well, we've seen an odd front, you've seen an even front, you've seen an odd stack, you've seen an even 4-4, you've seen it over and an under front. So there's a lot to reflect back on that they can pull and like, oh yeah, I remember doing that. And then now we get a whole week though to prep for it, and that's a big deal.
And you've seen a lot of different styles of play with United Township and Eureka and Rochelle and Sycamore and all those schools. You do get to see a lot of different things, and you're probably not going to see that kind of a variation during the regular season.
Well, I mean, our conference isn't overly different. Washington gets into their eye stuff and under center some, but Morton's in the Dunlaps and us and Pekin. Offensively for sure, are relatively mirror images. Now we do all of different little bit of things and different wrinkles depending on who you got in your group, but there's a lot of similarities in our conference, which is nice. But defensively, we see a pretty decent variety. Washington's going to be in their 4-3. They're going to get downhill, and you got to find a way to account for them every year. And Dunlap and Pekin's always going to be big, and they're going to have some athletic kids that you're going to have to find defensively and find out what they're lined up. And Coach Casler does a great job at Dunlap, and then the new guys all, Coach Durley at East Peoria is kind of finding his footing. Limestone's got a new coach that's got a state championship underneath his belt. Coach O'Neill at Morton has done lots of really, really good things, and he can coach at the next level, at a high level. So each week is a pretty big week of preparation. Got to really work hard, but we're pretty blessed. Our conference is good, so it gives you, once you make the playoffs, you feel like you're pretty well battle tested. But that summer stuff just allows you to get ahead a little bit more and kind of find out some things about some kids, what you have to fix, what you have to work on versus, like I said, in your own practices, sometimes you overlook those things.
Right, for sure. The other thing too is, this year they went from 25 contact days down to 20.
Yeah.
Is that a big, that's only 5 days, but that's a lot.
Well, in the grand scheme of things, it's kind of a big deal. We got through it okay, I think. There were a couple days where I felt like, boy, we really would have used those extra 5 days in June. But with what we're doing at the high school and trying to, encourage those multi-sport athletes that kind of baseball and basketball take the month of June. They got a lot of weekend tournaments. The basketball does. That's their weekends. Obviously, baseball kind of works its way through for the most part. Our school baseball team, the one Coach Riddle does, we're done that last weekend before the 4th of July. So basically when we look at it, we're like, all right, well, we'll do our workouts and lifts and get good in June. And then July is really our month to get work done. And we've done that the last, couple of years and moved our camp into July, and it used to be the last week of June. But we got to work, man. We got to get those kids, get as many kids as we can to be multi-sport athletes and share them. And then, you make a commitment to them. Usually they make a commitment to you by allowing them. And it's not allowing, but giving them opportunities is really what it's about, to be able to do all of that.
Does it, moving your camp from June to July, does that maybe help you when you get into the season in August because you had a camp more recently?
Well, I think a little bit. I don't know, because even when we had our camp in late June, then we still got 4 more weeks in July where we're working. So basically, it was kind of an intro week in June, and we cleaned stuff up the rest of the summer. Now we kind of introduce everything that first couple of weeks on our contact days, and then we get after in July. So the majority of our time in July are contact days, but our non-contact days, which would be lifting and running, that's when we use in June. So we make sure we use those 20. But yeah, it's just you got to use them all, I think, to get your kids ready to go. And you got to remember, and we got kids that are on vacation and that sort of stuff, so it's good. We want those kids that it's their summer still. Can they get on vacation? We just try to make sure that here's our dates. Really, really important. Let's try to find a way to get you there. And if you can't, you got to go on vacation. We understand.
Yeah, and when you look at your team this year, something must be. What do you have, like 120 kids out for football?
We got 120 out, freshmen through seniors. We got 39, 40, 41 freshmen. That number's kind of fluctuated. Now the schools come in, we got to pick up a kid here and there. Picked up a couple other kids for the varsity group. Sophomore, they just decided to come out once he got into school. He's a transfer in. We got him in, and then we got a foreign exchange student from Brazil. So he showed up Monday. So we'll see how that goes. But he's going to kind of go through the rings. He, just said he wanted to play American football. His dad and his uncle were students at Metamora High School in the foreign exchange program. So his uncle, I believe, was a year older than me. I think he was a senior when I was a junior. I think he was number 33, but don't hold me to that exactly. But he remembers. It was Eduardo, but I can't remember his last name. This is Gracias, is Tiago. That's his name, but I can't remember Eduardo. But don't hold me to that either. But I think that's what it was. But I do remember we did, and we had a couple that year. So, they're one of those things. So, he goes, I'm in America, I want to try. But, and these are things that you enjoy. His uncle got to keep his helmet. Pat gave it to him, and We were sitting down there talking. I'm getting him his new helmet and to wear, and we're trying it on. And he goes, my uncle's got the OG. I'm like, the OG? He's like, yeah. It's like the original? He's like, yeah. It's red with a white bird. And then it's like, yeah. So now we got a black one with a red bird, and he's like, oh, this is cool. So when you talk about, we got some pretty cool things coming up this year for the 75 team and stuff, and we talk about how much it means. Here's a foreign exchange student that came to Metamora for a semester or whatever that year was, took his helmet home, and cared enough about our program to share it with his nephew, who's now, here at our high school. So
yeah, that's
a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, for sure. So you get ready now for this upcoming season. And we'll get into that a little bit in the second half of the show. But you've gone now through 3 weeks of practice. School started. Hell Week is not like Hell Week was when you and I played.
No, no.
It's quite a bit different.
It's week -1 now. Okay. That's what we call it now.
So when school start like the day after you started?
On Monday, we started, that was our first practice. We had morning practice Tuesday, and then staff reported Tuesday afternoon for our meetings, and then Wednesday was the first day of full school for the kids. So yeah, we got 2 in the morning, and which was nice because it was really hot. We got our practice in from 7 to 10, and then, then we went to school. So yeah, there was a time like people are talking about, like we used to have 3 days and 2 days and all that sort of stuff. I'm like, well, how did it work? I'm like, well, school didn't start till day 9. Like,
right.
we were grinding through. It's like, basically, we went all the way up to emphasis week without school. We started school maybe on that Friday of emphasis or, the following Monday. Yeah. So school starts earlier. There was a time, though, we didn't start practice till Wednesdays, back when we played, back in the good old days, on Wednesdays, and they moved that back to Monday for us. And they were, yeah. So it's been good. But everybody's kind of in the same boat. Everybody starts school now at the same time. So you just kind of work your way through it, and then you got to deal with the heat and all that sort of stuff.
I was a freshman in 1979.
I was born in 1978. So
yeah. You were a year old.
I was a year old.
And we didn't have JFL then.
Nah, I didn't play JFL either.
We had, I think, 68 freshmen my freshman year.
That's a good number. We didn't have that many.
We had 68 freshmen, and we started Hell Week on a Wednesday.
Okay.
And the first practice was full pad.
Yeah.
You stretched out, and the first thing we did was hamburger grill.
Yeah. That's not a whole lot of fun.
Separated a lot of people.
You'll find out how many of those 68 come back on that Thursday. So.
Yeah. And then we practiced 3 a day, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and they always hung this little carrot out that if you practice real well, we'd only have 1 practice on Saturday. In 4 years of high school, we always had at least 2 practices.
So Coach Ryan's was always, we were 3 days, or 3 practices a day, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. But it was always supposed to be the last one. It was like supposed to be an hour and a half, right? It was 2.5, an hour and a half. We'll start at 6 and we'll be done by 7:30. We all know that really wasn't how it was going to go. I think we were done by 8:30, because that was supposed to be our pass period. So if it didn't go very well, we stopped passing and we just got back into the run game at that time.
Yeah.
But my senior year with Joe Kenyon and Gary Bundy, and we had some guys that could go get the ball. Andy Reeb at fullback, but we threw the ball a little bit with Joe, and so some of those practices were a little shorter. But yeah, that whole idea that it was 3 days and that last one's going to be an hour and a half was usually stretched to 2 more times than not.
And then that second week, school started on that Monday always, and we'd go 2 days, but never in the morning because Coach Helmick liked to sleep.
Yeah,
and
sleep is good.
And we'd go right after school, and then come back at like 6:30 and go till dark, which never came quick enough.
No.
And but you got to remember, the football season didn't start for at least another week later than it does now because we had the Wednesday playoff game.
Yep. Yeah, the early one.
Yeah. So our first games were usually like September 7th or 8th.
It's a lot of practice time.
Oh, by the time the game came around, the practices had gotten pretty bad.
Yeah, sometimes you need a break. And the new acclimation thing that the IHSA came out with quite a few years ago, but then they re-upped it, is that we can do 2 a days, so we can do 2 on Saturday, but this year we couldn't get the second one in because it was so hot. And then you can alternate 2 days with 1 days, but everybody's in school, so we're not going to come in at 4 or 5 in the morning to go 5 to 7, and then you come back. And the rules are you got to have a 3-hour break in between practice, so you can't do an evening one and then come back. We're going to come back at 8, go to 8 to 10. So we got a 3-hour practice. So we keep it organized and keep it moving and try to make it feel as short as 3 hours can possibly be without it becoming mundane and repetitive to the point where you lose the kids. So a lot of different periods we move in and out of them. Keep it light.
The other thing too is we always practiced in that field north of the football field, which is now the practice field and a practice soccer field.
Yep.
And I remember back then that neighborhood wasn't quite there yet, so that whole field was surrounded by cornfield, and it was like a sauna. There was never any breeze.
That's a lot of sweat. That's a lot of sweat.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we practiced. My freshman year, we were out there in that little hill there, in the old softball diamond in the back corner there, and I still remember my buddy Jeff Stewart had a bee fly into his helmet up there on the hill, and Jeff was a big guy, and that was a little bee, and he couldn't get that helmet off fast enough. So, but yeah, those kind of memories, you don't forget out there. And that's part of part of the grind and part of the brotherhood and the family part is you remember all those things. And
For sure.
So yeah, but I mean that's one of the beautiful things about the game.
Why don't we take a break? When we come back, we'll talk about the upcoming game against Sterling and the rest of the Mid-Atlantic Conference.
Sounds good.
Germantown Grill, where our staff loves the game as much as you do. Football, basketball, baseball, whatever your sport, we'll be cheering right along as we serve up your hometown favorites. We've got everything you need to celebrate the wins. Food and flavors to satisfy any craving. Plus, the best private gaming around, powered by Gold Rush Gaming, the gold standard in video gaming. Only at Germantown Grill in Germantown Hills.
Welcome back. First, before we get too far, I want to thank Jake Atkins for allowing us to come down here to the grill. Really appreciate it. It's a great place to do a coach's show from.
Absolutely.
Coach, you have a pretty much a kind of a familiar foe coming up in Sterling to open up the season this year. Another even more familiar, their head coach, Johnny Schlemmer, is their head coach. Has been there for years. I think this is the 4th year in a row or 5th year in a row?
I'd have to go back and look, but it's become a really good week one for both of us. Outside of the really good friendship that we have, and so that part's kind of hard because you really want to talk football a lot, and we talk football a lot, but you can't talk about too much football because we always talk about what we're doing or they're doing, and we're really secretive in the football world, so we don't want to share anything. But I mean, it's great. I love it when the game's over, to get back to who we are as friends, and we're two uber competitive guys that have really care about kids, probably care about winning, and probably care about losing way more because we probably hate to lose more than we really love to win. But yeah, Johnny's coming in, and you're going to get a hard-nosed team. You're going to have a team that's very well coached defensively and offensively. They do a really good job offensively of trying to match their scheme to their kids. They've done just about a little bit of everything, from jet to a little under center. Used to be old school wing T when he first started, when Coach King was there. But again, a very similar mirror team to us offensively in terms of what they're trying to do. It just comes down to personnel and what you have that year. As you've seen, our offense is never really the same every year, depending on who we got. From the Tommy Halls to Stephen Petrie, who are, two totally different players. But, you got to adjust and adapt to what they do to give yourself the best chance to win. And John's crew does a really good job of that. And then, but defensively, that's what they hang their hat on, and they have. I mean, last year, 5 of their games, they gave up 14 points or less. Every game has been, with us, has been a close grind. I mean, there's been a couple more comfortable wins and some uncomfortable losses in terms of when you think you can get in it or not. But I do think the one thing that we can look forward to is I don't think we're going to get lightninged out. Knock on wood.
It's not going to be hot.
It's not going to be hot. We know those things. I talked to John 2 weeks ago, and I'm like, well, just make sure what are we going to play Saturday? Because we're going to get lightning, and it's going to be actually in Washburn and Washington, and it's going to be in Roanoke, and it's going to be in Henry, but if we're going to see it and the Thor guard's going to go off, and we're just going to sit here and wait to play. So just what time do you want to come back on Saturday is what we should probably pre-plan so you can make sure you get the buses ready to go. But I think that part's going to kind of take care of itself. And but yeah, it'll be a beautiful 77 degrees, I think, at kickoff, something like that at the height. And,
It's going to feel like the middle of September.
It's going to be really nice, and hopefully our kids are up to match that.
How difficult is it to prepare for the first game of the year? Because you have film, but you don't have that year's.
Yeah, I mean, week one's probably the most difficult and most challenging for everybody in the state. We all know that. Even when you play traditional teams that do traditional type things, it's new people every year, right? So you never know. Is it the quarterback that was a junior last year that's now a senior? Is he going to be the guy? Did they have a kid that was a freshman?
A transfer.
A transfer. You got all those sort of things you got to go through, and you're like, well, you're counting guys that are coming back, and you're like, well, they brought back the left tackle, but is he still a left tackle? Are they going to move him to right guard? Those sort of things, and you count up all those things, and you're like, you make your best guess, right? And then you show up, and it's like, that ain't anything we expected. Like 2 years ago we showed up, and then John was in a bit of a different front than he'd shown for the most part, and it took us a while. Good thing we had the lightning delay, because it took us a while in the lightning delay to finally come to the conclusion of what we wanted to do, and then that second half we kind of were able to kind of take control of it, and we dealt with some cramps, they dealt with cramps, but we were able to just kind of control the clock from then on out. And Nick Rhodes had an absolute great debut, and a couple of big fourth down completions and a couple touchdowns to Kendrick Shaffrin that were really needed. 4th and 3 was one of the touchdowns. So those sort of things. But it is, and I'm sure he's in the same boat that we are and trying to figure out, now granted he knows Jadon Cranford's back, which probably is driving him nuts because, Jadon's very talented. The other part of it is when you bring back all those guys, you're going, man, that's a lot of returning minutes that you have to try to account for because they're progressing too. They're going to be a year better.
Four captains?
We got six. We went with six. Stephen Petrie, and then Caleb Morrison, Riley Blue, Owen Cabell, Jadon Cranford, and Braden Bittner were voted upon by their teammates. Stephen probably had one of the largest voting turnouts we've ever had as a captain.
Quarterback.
Yeah, it's more than that. Stephen's a natural-born leader. Kids gravitate towards him. He does the right thing. He says the right thing. He can challenge kids the correct way to get them going. Can pick guys up when he needs them. But yeah, everything you want a leader, Stephen Petrie has. And those other guys down the list kind of bring their own. Caleb Morrison brings a physicality, kind of that, big weight room guy. Had a great offseason in the weight room, threw up big weights, brought people through that way. Riley Blue and Owen Cabell, returning O-line guys, right guard, center. Those are guys that, they're the leader of their group, and they're the leaders of the O-line. They kind of take charge of the huddle when Stephen's getting a play call, getting things lined up. Jadon Cranford's in his 4th year, and I think I think he's taken a very mature step from last year to now, in terms of his mindset, his mental preparation, doing all the little things that are asked of him, and because he knows everybody's looking at him. And
he's exciting to watch.
He's pretty exciting. And then Braden Bittner's been a guy that's, a 2-year starter that, his dad played, and he just he's consistent, and he's one of those guys that's just always there, doing the right thing at the right time, very coachable. So when we got that mix of, some talkative guys, Riley Blue will talk a lot, and Stephen, and then you got some guys that are more followed by, examples. So it's a good mix. I couldn't have agreed more with, what the kids came up with, and that's exciting. And then, one thing we talked about was that we're going to look to maybe having a captain each week or every other week, or when we find a kid that has done all the work needed and shown some leadership skills during practice, that he'll be the next captain up, an honorary captain per week. And it's just one of those things, because there's a lot of kids that are great, and they're not always the guy that gets seen, and they have great practices, and they do everything that's asked of them. I do think that there's, it's not that whole everybody needs to get a reward, but when you're in the program, or whatever it is, and we talk about family, and we talk about how important it is, and everybody, it's a great way to reward a kid doing all the right things.
Yeah, so you have an honorary captain within the program.
Within the program, yeah, that's kind of the plan, and it depends on the week. We got a guy that really stands out and does everything that's asked of him and picks teammates up and that sort of stuff. We'll reflect upon that, and as coaches, we'll kind of nominate and talk on Thursday night. And then, there might be weeks where we just don't have that guy that week, so we'll see.
When you look at this year's team, what do you kind of hang your hat on? What is this team going to be a power team, finesse team?
Well, I think we're probably more on the power side of things. It's what we want to do is we want to run the football. And it's not a big question of what we want to do. We want to get Jade on the ball. And then we got Steven that, can carry the rock as well as everybody else. But Keon Allen's had a really, really good summer. Vinny Rasmussen came out, came back. He's dealt with some injuries and but Keon's done a lot of really good things, and if Jadon's not ready to go, I fully trust that Keon's going to be able to step into his role. And between him and Vinny, depending on what we need or when we need it, both of those guys can take some carries off Jadon's plate, and because Jadon's going to be on defense too. I mean, he's a returning, he's a returning corner. He's a 3-year starter there. Hopefully less blows than some other times, but no, we're really excited about that. I think we're going to run the football. And like last year, though, when you talk about you guys want to run the football, well, we do, but we threw the ball for over 200 yards 3 times.
Yes.
We beat Sterling by throwing it for 215 to 230 yards or whatever. So it's not like we're afraid to throw the ball. We're going to do what's given to us. And you go back and watch Sterling from last year, we probably could have thrown for 400 yards if I would have kept calling pass plays. But that gets me a little uncomfortable. But we've done that once. Tommy threw for 350, so that was a good day.
280 in the first day.
Yeah, it was a big day. So.
And you haven't even mentioned Jaden Lambert, who you've kind of brought back the fullback a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, Jaden's, dealt with a knee injury last year early in the season. Got him back out. He's healthy. It was more about getting his knee healthy so he feels really good. But, yeah, he'll be in the mix a little bit as our H-back, which, Caleb Morrison will play as well. And Zeke Bavard's another one that's been a real good senior that's just kind of put his time in. He was kind of guard last year. Undersized, we moved him to H to have a little bit of depth, and then he's really taken over kind of as the non-starter guy because Caleb's a defensive guy. Lambert's going to play some other fullback spots as well with independent formations. That gives Zeke a very solid guy that can go in there and do what he needs to. So we're excited about Zeke, and but Lambert he's pretty talented. He can do a lot of things. He's the bigger back of all of them, right? He's 215 pounds. He's 6'1", 6'2".
He's the bruiser.
And he is a bruiser, and he's been a bruiser, and he can carry the load. Had a good game against Chatham. Broke some tackles. Tough to bring down. So using all those guys are going to be in the mix in some way. And are we going to get in some more 2-back sets because we feel really good about having 2 running backs. The nice thing about it as a coach and Coach Otto and Coach Simmons and Coach Urban is we got some options to look at things.
And then you haven't even mentioned some of your receivers because if you do need to throw the ball, looks like you got some guys that can catch it too.
Well, I mean, we're excited about everything we've got, and part of it is just making sure that we bring them along. Jason Pickles is a junior that we've really liked. Dealt with a little bit of some injuries last year, but had a real good JV season. Couldn't quite get, Avery Grebner was our A. That's kind of a tough spot to break because Avery was really good and was able to allow us to do a lot of good off-script things offensively. We could move things around. Braden Bittner will get more wide receiver reps this year, where last year he was just a corner. And then Kyler McMillan is a transfer in that gives us a bit of a spark. He's pretty electric. But him and Jason are pretty similar in terms of they got good speed, good understanding of where they need to be. It's just all about trying to find that rhythm with Steven and get them on track where they're at. But with our RPO game, we can be pretty explosive at times.
And then your offensive line, still pretty young. You mentioned the 2 starters.
Yeah.
The other guys are pretty young.
So Tyler Gray is another senior, and Jay Murphy, those 2 guys are kind of battling right now at left guard. Then Jeffrey Reyes is a sophomore left tackle, and Logan Grapp will be a sophomore at right tackle, and then their backup is a sophomore, and Jackson Backus. So we got a lot of young kids that we're really excited about. We just got to get them to grow up as quickly as possible. But that part's all exciting. And then Evan Grove, who started last year as a freshman, he's back, but he's dealing with a shoulder injury. He had surgery in the spring. We're hoping to get him back sooner than later. Just kind of comes down to his rehab is way ahead of schedule. It's just, waiting for the doc to say, you're good to go. So is it in 2 weeks? Is it in 5 weeks? But I know he's working his tail off to get strength back in the shoulder and be able to get back because he's a good player, and that allows us to use Tyler kind of as a swing guy. And Jay plays nose on defense, so that gives us a little bit more depth when he gets back.
Yeah. And then, of course, your defense, it seems like you've got a lot of guys who are like the linebacker kind of build, and then I look for your defense to be pretty solid again.
Well, we hope so. I mean, we got to stop some people, and we got to stop the run. That's the number one most important thing, so that's what we talk about. But Sam Barbarinas is a senior that's returning. He was probably played at times at an all-conference level last year, not all the time consistently.
Was a little dinged.
But everybody is, at some point during the season. So, but at times he was a handle, a lot to handle for the other team. And then Jackson Backus can play the other defensive end and is probably as long and rangy as a defensive end type body that we've had in a long time.
Very athletic.
And he sticks out in a hurry. It's pretty easy to see him. And then we'll get big inside. A.J. Yeager's a sophomore. Jay Murphy, Riley Blue, those three guys will kind of handle, some nose and some interior stuff for us. And Caleb Morrison comes back defensively. He was at inside linebacker. And then Grady Neal is another one that, started outside for us last year. So got to fill those other two linebacker spots. And then, Jadon's back at corner, Braden's back at corner. And when Steven, rotates in, it gives us another guy back there that, that's been Steven started as a sophomore at strong safety. So that gives us a couple more guys to build. And, you're hoping that you build depth in behind. Kylan McMillan's another guy that's a DB that can play. Jason Pickles, Braden Cox, who's a sophomore. It's a very talented kid that's also in the mix defensively and a little bit offensively. So are we happy about the guys on paper and their names? Absolutely. And then, Mark Ashelman's a guy that we think has a real bright future, but he's a sophomore. So we got to make sure that he understands his role. And I think he had a real good growing up last week at Chatham and understanding reading keys and understanding what you have to do when you read your key and then react. But there's some guys that we really have a chance, I think, to be really good football players. We just got to keep with them and understand sometimes those young guys are going to make a few mistakes and let them grow up. Just hopefully they're not too big of mistakes.
When you look at the Mid-Illini Conference, you have Washington, and I'm not going to say there's another level after, but you got to knock off the bully. And Washington is, let's face it, they're the bully of the Mid-Illini Conference.
There's no doubt. They're the top of the conference and have been now for how many ever years it is, except for the 1 year. When Pekin knocked them off, and then the 1 year Pekin tied for the conference championship. But recently it's taken a pretty special crew to beat Washington right now. And Pekin brings a lot back. Joel Starr has them winning the conference at 9-0, and those are things that they got their quarterbacks back, and Dylan Anderson's an electric football player as well. So they got pieces, they're going to be big. So that's good. Those are what they have coming back, puts you in. Last year we really struggled in the first half. We've got a couple onside kicks in the second half. We put up 2 quick scores. And then we were right back in and we put the ball on the ground, unfortunately. And a lot of that had to do with, still not having Steven back, with the injury, and Avery played great. But you never know when that mesh is going to be the wrong mesh, and wasn't anything that either of those guys did. It just happened to be the wrong fumble at the wrong time. And I don't know if we're going to go score on that drive or not, but I'd rather have the ball and go find out if we're going to or not than turn the ball over. So that one's good. And you look at it, one score game there. Morton's basically a one-score game, the whole game. Dunlap ends up being a one-score loss. We got the ball trying to go down and score. We're down and we get the sack and they return it. We're still within one score. Touchdown and 2-point conversion. We tie that bad boy up, and so those sort of things. When you look at those teams, and we're pretty similar. And it's all about trying to fight. And then if we can find a way to knock off Washington, then all of a sudden it's like the chink in the armor, and then everybody else thinks that maybe I can go get them. Now we get the first shot at them, right? Week 3. So we got to take care of our week 1s and week 2, and then see what happens. But we all know Washington is the cream of the crop right now, and you got to find a way to beat them until they can come back down. So
it's and I think this is when I look at this year's Mid-Illini Conference, and I've always thought, you've had a couple teams at the top, and then the rest of the conference kind of filled in. I think this is the best the Mid-Illini has been in a long time.
Well, I do think that there's some quality depth from top to bottom, even at least coaches-wise, for sure. And not that I'm saying that there was ever bad coaches in the conference. I'm not saying that, but some of the pedigree now of, that are coming into the conference and, in a Durley and a Bielema, Limestone now, you want to state championship. And, and of course, Coach Stevens and Caslett and O'Neill and Coach Nutter have been doing it for a long time. And Adam's new, but he's done it a long time and had success at every one of his stops. So I think that part, I do think preparation each week is really hard because you got to make sure, and everybody does a great job. I mean, there's no real gimmies in terms of preparation, no matter who you're coaching against. Each week's a serious week that we got to take. But I do think maybe we can close the gap on Washington a little bit. You say that every year. They graduate, 14 of 22 starters or whatever it is, and then you list that list, and then you show up to play them, and they all still look the same.
Names change.
Yes, the names change. Sometimes the number doesn't, just the name. But everybody's got their work cut out for them, and I think every coach in our conference works really hard to make sure that they put out the best product every Friday night.
Coach, we'll give you one more question here, and we'll let you get going here. But biggest surprise this year up to this point, what's your biggest surprise as a head coach at Metamora?
How many emails I get? It's a lot of emails. It's a lot of emails and messages. That's the biggest surprise. Football-wise, I think the biggest surprise is how much growth we've seen in our young kids. And I'm not surprised at how our older kids have brought those guys along. But the Ashlemans, the Reyes, the Grapps, the Braden Coxes, they're sophomores jumping into big-time football. I mean, it's going to be big-time football on Friday night. And we're hoping that it's not too big for them right away. But, that's probably been the most pleasant surprise in terms of a group continuing to grow and get better. We see those improvements every day. Individual players, we expect a lot out of our kids. We talk about the standard of being smart, tough, reliable, and what it means to play Metamora football and what it takes to go from your freshman year to your senior year. You can look at all those seniors and go, that's what they're supposed to do. Yeah. You know what I mean? That if they're Metamora football players. You got the smaller kids that keep growing, they just keep staying with it, and they put on 50 pounds, and all of a sudden, they might have been a second string freshman, but now they're competing as a senior for a starting role, like a Zeke Brevard. And then you've got those guys that have always been a starter, but they don't sit on their laurels and say, I've always been a starter. They're in the weight room. They make sure they're doing the right thing. They understand that my role now is to be a senior leader. When I'm in the weight room, I'm doing my job. We talked about that this week after the Chatham scrimmage last week. It's about being disciplined, disciplined, and doing your job. And then pick your teammates up when they're going bad. Find a way to pick somebody up. And that was kind of our message this week. And, I kind of sent out a message to them on our messaging app, every day of just something. And, today's was Alabama national championship game. They're up big points. And there's 4 minutes to go in the game. And there's their quarterback and center fighting because they're supposed to make a check. And they both thought that their check was right, but they're up 42-13. This game's over. They're winning a national championship. And there they are out in the middle of the field pushing each other because they both thought they were right because they don't care about the score. They know they have to do what's right all the time. And, what's the standard going to be? And we stress that smart, tough, reliable. And I would say my biggest thing is I'm pretty blessed with the coaching staff that I got around me, the players that care a lot about our program, community members that care about our program, to see us continue to grow and get better. And, when you get 120 kids out in your program, in today's age, we're down to 889 kids. That's a pretty special number. Yeah. And I'm pretty excited about where the growth of this program is going to go.
Yeah. A couple years ago, opposing coach, I do the chains at the sophomore games, and one of your biggest rivals, one of the coaches on that team said, this is in a JV game, he said, I don't know if there's a school around here that has kids as freshmen who rarely see the field by the time they're varsity, they're knocking your helmet off.
I mean, Coach Ryan had a lot to do with that,
Yeah.
and I'm one of those guys. I didn't play it down my freshman year. I basically played for the other team. I scored 4 points for Eureka in a B game because I got sacked for 2 safeties. And I didn't really do anything my freshman year, and thank goodness Coach Kurt came and talked to me that summer, and I wasn't going to play. Who knows where I'd be? But without Coach Kurt, summer
is food time.
Yeah, that's where I was. Summer, I'm sitting outside, and he rides up there in that mule and goes, "Hey, why haven't you been at practice?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And he's like, "I think you should come out." And I did, and if I don't, I don't know where I'm at. So as much as Kurt and I got a lot of love for that man, and without him, I don't know where I'd be right now.
A lot of people can probably see.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of how he is, and amongst and Pat and Joe, who've been great to me, and yeah, I mean without that, who knows who you're talking to right now. If we go back to the summer of 1993.
And I'll leave you with this is. Pat Ryan told me one time, I asked him about what was so special about being the head coach at Metamora, and he goes, he said, John Venturi told him this one time. He said, when you coach in a town that is passionate about football, the only thing they ask is that you just win once a week.
You just got to win once a week.
And that's really all the the passionate fans of Metamora are asking.
That's all they ask when we get one a week.
One a week.
Yeah, I know it's a nice statement, but we got to go try and win one a week. We only get 9 of them.
Yep.
So
it's the only thing you're guaranteed.
That's the only thing we're guaranteed right now. So, no, Coach Ryan's right. I mean, it's a blessing to be in this community, and we've all grown up in it, and we care, right? MTCO is doing this. I mean, doesn't have to be done, and there's a lot of programs that don't do things like this. So I'm very, very, very blessed and very thankful for the community and everybody that's involved in it. And we've got great parents. And, Thursday night team meals tomorrow night. We have team meals on Friday before the games. All those things, they don't just happen unless everybody cares about what's going in and everybody buys in. Kids buy in, parents buy in. It's very easy to just say, we're not going to do that. But we don't live that way, and hope our kids understand that too. So we're looking forward to the season for sure, and really hoping to talk to you on Sunday night or whenever our next meeting is on a big handshake and a hug, and we'll get out of here then.
Coach, good luck. Bring home a W Wednesday or this Friday night.
Yep.
And we'll see you at the game.
Yep.
That'll do it for the Nick Delinski Show. We'll see you Friday night at Malone Field.